You're hearing noise everywhere right now. Screens lighting up, clips being reposted, people screaming. It's over, before they even know what it actually is. But pause for a second, because this situation around Lil Durk isn't playing out like a normal rap headline. And that's exactly why it's spreading faster than facts can catch up. Here's what's being circulated: federal involvement and alleged hidden safe, and claims tied to a search that people online are already framing like a final chapter. But let's be clear, this isn't a confirmed storyline. It's a developing storm of reports, speculation, and amplified internet interpretation all colliding at once. And once that mix hits hip-hop culture, you already know how fast the narrative runs ahead of reality. Now the part nobody is slowing down to question: why is this blowing up now? Because in rap, timing is everything. Old names, old tensions, old associations. They don't stay buried when attention spikes. The moment federal agencies get mentioned in the same breath as a major artist, the internet doesn't wait for verification. It builds a movie. And that's exactly what's happening here. People are connecting dots that may not even belong in the same picture. A secret safe turns into a symbol. A search rumor turns into a storyline. And a storyline turns into a verdict online long before anything is proven in real life. But here's the twist you're not seeing in the reposts. The louder the speculation gets, the less reliable the details become. In situations like this, silence from official sources isn't confirmation, it's just silence. And internet culture fills silence with the wildest possible version of events. So before you jump to conclusions about what's done or who's finished, understand what you're actually watching. This isn't a conclusion. It's a rapidly evolving narrative built on fragments, amplified by reaction, and pushed into overdrive by audiences who treat rumors like releases. And in hip-hop, that's often where the real story begins, not ends. Right now, you're watching something unfold that the internet is already treating like a finished case, but the reality behind it is nowhere near that clean or confirmed. What's being pushed across timelines, reposted in clips, and stretched into theories is a mixture of speculation, alleged reports, and heavy online interpretation. And once that kind of energy hits a major name in hip-hop like Lil Durk, the story stops being just news and starts becoming a full-blown narrative war between rumor and reality. The phrase, "FBI found a secret safe," is exactly the kind of detail that sends social media into overdrive. It sounds cinematic, it sounds final, and it sounds like the end of a storyline. But at this moment, there is no verified public confirmation laying out anything close to that description in a definitive way. What exists instead is a cloud of circulating claims, fragmented posts, and people connecting dots that haven't been officially connected by any credible authority. But the internet doesn't wait for confirmation anymore. It builds conclusions first and asks questions later. And that's where things get dangerous in terms of perception. Because once a phrase like, "he's finished," enters the algorithm, it spreads faster than any correction ever could. People don't just consume the headline, they amplify the emotion behind it. They run with the shock value. They turn uncertainty into certainty because certainty gets clicks. And suddenly, what started as unverified chatter becomes treated like established fact in the public space, even when nothing has been formally proven. In hip-hop culture, this pattern is not new, but it is evolving. Artists at Durk's level exist in a constant intersection between music, influence, legal scrutiny, and online myth-making. Every legal mention gets magnified. Every rumor gets expanded. Every association gets reinterpreted through the lens of past narratives. And once that machine starts spinning, it rarely slows down on its own. It either burns out or escalates until something official interrupts it. What makes this moment feel louder than usual is the speed of interpretation. There are posts treating alleged developments like they are confirmed timelines. There are threads breaking down what it means before anyone even knows what it actually is. And there are entire comment sections building full story arcs out of incomplete information. That is the modern cycle: information, speculation, amplification, and distortion all happening within minutes of each other. But underneath all of this, there is a critical gap that most people are ignoring: verification. In situations involving federal agencies, searches, or legal implications, the only thing that actually defines reality is official confirmation. Everything else exists in a temporary space where it can be edited, exaggerated, or completely misinterpreted. And right now, that is exactly where this entire narrative sits, inside that unstable space between claim and confirmation. Still, the emotional reaction online is real, and that's part of why the story spreads so fast. Lil Durk is not just a name in this context. He is a major figure in modern rap, with influence that stretches far beyond music. So when his name gets attached to serious-sounding allegations, even without clarity, the internet doesn't process it neutrally. It reacts first, analyzes later, or never analyzes at all. That reaction creates a feedback loop. One post suggests something extreme, another amplifies it, another rephrases it with more confidence, and within hours the original uncertainty disappears completely from the conversation. What remains is a hardened version of the rumor that feels like truth simply because it has been repeated enough times. That is how digital narratives evolve in real time, especially in entertainment news cycles tied to controversy. And this is exactly why you're seeing such a split in how people are responding. On one side, there are those treating it as if the outcome is already decided. On the other side, there are people pushing back, pointing out the lack of verified evidence and urging caution. That tension between certainty and skepticism is where the real story actually lives right now, not in the headlines, but in the gap between them. So before anything else gets added to this narrative, before more theories stack on top of theories, the only accurate way to frame it is as a developing situation shaped by circulating claims and incomplete information. Everything else is interpretation. And in moments like this, interpretation moves faster than truth, but it does not replace it. The moment a story like this hits the internet, it stops being just about one artist and starts becoming about how quickly perception can replace verified reality. With Lil Durk at the center of circulating claims involving federal activity and an alleged secret safe, what you are really seeing is not a finished case, but a rapidly expanding narrative built on fragments of information that have not been officially confirmed in any detailed public statement. And yet, online, the tone has already shifted as if the ending is known. This is where modern rap culture collides with the speed of digital media. In earlier eras, stories like this would move slowly, filtered through official reports, press releases, and traditional media verification. Now, it moves through reposts, clips, commentary pages, and algorithm-driven amplification. That means the first emotional interpretation often becomes more visible than the factual backbone of the situation. And once that happens, correcting the narrative becomes significantly harder than creating it. The phrase, "secret safe," is a perfect example of how language shapes perception before truth is established. It is a phrase that immediately triggers imagination. People picture hidden evidence, sealed information, and dramatic consequences. But in reality, without verified documentation or confirmed reporting detailing such a discovery, the phrase exists more as a narrative device than an established fact. Still, that distinction gets lost in the speed of online consumption, where attention moves faster than accuracy. What makes this even more amplified is the position Lil Durk holds in the rap ecosystem. He is not a background figure where rumors fade unnoticed. He is a central voice in contemporary hip-hop, with a large audience that reacts instantly to any suggestion involving legal pressure or federal attention. That scale of visibility ensures that even unconfirmed claims receive maximum exposure, often within minutes of appearing online. At the same time, there is a second layer that fuels the intensity of these situations: pattern memory. The internet remembers past cases involving artists, legal issues, and federal investigations. So when a new rumor appears, it gets automatically placed next to previous high-profile stories. That comparison creates an illusion of familiarity, as if the current situation is already understood through past events. But that shortcut often skips the most important step: verification of what is actually happening right now. In this environment, emotional reaction becomes the dominant force. People respond to how a story feels rather than what has been confirmed. Words like "finished raid" or "secret evidence" carry weight because they suggest finality. And finality is what drives engagement. It turns uncertainty into something that feels resolved, even when nothing has been officially concluded. That is why narratives like this spread so quickly and take on lives of their own. Meanwhile, official silence or lack of detailed public information creates space for interpretation. And in that space, speculation grows. Each new post adds another layer. Each comment section adds another theory. Each video breakdown adds another assumption. Over time, the original uncertainty becomes buried under multiple versions of the story, all competing to sound the most convincing. But despite all of this noise, the structure of how such situations actually unfold remains consistent. Real developments in federal investigations, if they exist, are not defined by online language or viral phrasing. They are defined by confirmed filings, verified reports, and official disclosures. Until those elements are present, everything circulating remains within the category of unverified claims, regardless of how confidently it is repeated. That distinction is crucial because it separates narrative momentum from factual status. And right now, the momentum is clearly stronger than the confirmed facts in the public domain. That imbalance is what creates the feeling of urgency online, even when the underlying situation has not been officially clarified. Lil Durk's name being attached to this type of conversation is enough to ensure that it will not disappear quickly. In modern hip-hop media cycles, major names do not get the benefit of slow processing. They get immediate amplification, immediate reaction, and immediate judgment from audiences that are often reacting in real time without waiting for clarity. That is the environment this story is moving through right now. So what you are actually witnessing is not closure, and not confirmation, but a live example of how fast narrative construction can outpace verified reporting. And until official information defines the boundaries of what is real and what is not, everything else remains fluid, unstable, and subject to correction. As this situation continues to circulate online, what becomes increasingly clear is that the story is no longer being shaped by facts alone, but by the speed at which interpretations are stacking on top of each other. With Lil Durk's name tied to alleged federal involvement and talk of a secret safe, the conversation has moved far beyond simple reporting. It has entered a space where perception, repetition, and speculation are doing most of the work that verified information has not yet done. In moments like this, the internet behaves less like a news source and more like an ecosystem of competing narratives. Each post tries to define the situation a little more aggressively than the last. Each clip attempts to add context that may or may not exist in official records. And each comment section becomes a place where uncertainty is treated like something that needs to be solved immediately. The result is a layered distortion, where the original facts, if limited or unconfirmed, get buried under interpretation. What stands out most in this cycle is how quickly certainty is being simulated. Phrases like, "It's over," or "He's finished," Spread because they provide emotional closure. They give audiences a sense of resolution in a situation that is actually unresolved. But that sense of closure is artificial. It is built from repetition, not verification. And once enough people echo it, it starts to feel real even in the absence of official confirmation. This is especially important when dealing with topics involving federal agencies or legal investigations. These are not environments where information is released casually or in fragments that can be fully understood from social media summaries. Real developments in such cases follow structured processes, documented evidence, and formal disclosures. Anything outside of that framework exists in an interpretive space, not a confirmed one. And right now, the public conversation is still operating almost entirely within that interpretive space. Lil Durk's position in the music industry makes the amplification even more intense. He is not a peripheral figure where rumors fade unnoticed. He is a major artist with a large, responsive audience and a strong cultural footprint in modern rap. That level of visibility means that even small, unverified claims can escalate into widespread narratives within hours. And once that escalation happens, the original context often gets lost in translation. Another factor driving this situation is the way online culture rewards urgency. Content that suggests finality or dramatic outcomes spreads faster than content that emphasizes uncertainty. So naturally, interpretations that frame the situation as concluded gain more traction than those that highlight the lack of verified detail. This creates a structural imbalance in how information is consumed, where the most extreme version of a story often becomes the most visible version, regardless of accuracy. At the same time, there is an ongoing tension between skepticism and assumption. Some audiences are pushing back, pointing out that there is no confirmed public evidence supporting the more extreme claims being circulated. Others are treating the volume of posts itself as validation, assuming that repetition equals credibility. This divide is not unusual in modern digital discourse, but it becomes especially pronounced when high-profile names are involved. What is often missed in this process is how incomplete information evolves once it enters the algorithmic cycle. A single unverified claim can be reposted, rephrased, and reinterpreted dozens of times until it no longer resembles its original form. By the time it reaches peak visibility, it may carry emotional weight and narrative structure, but not necessarily factual grounding. That transformation is subtle, but powerful. In this case, the idea of a secret safe has taken on symbolic meaning beyond whatever the original context may have been. It has become a placeholder for assumed evidence, assumed consequences, and assumed outcomes. But symbolism in online narratives does not equal verification in real-world terms. It only reflects how audiences are processing uncertainty through familiar storytelling patterns. And that is ultimately what this moment represents, a collision between uncertainty and narrative acceleration. The more unclear the official information remains, the more room there is for interpretation. The more interpretation spreads, the more it begins to replace the original ambiguity. This cycle continues until something authoritative either confirms or corrects the direction of the conversation. Until that happens, what exists is not a conclusion, but a developing and unstable narrative environment. One where perception is moving faster than confirmation, and where the loudest version of a story is not necessarily the most accurate one. At this stage of the conversation, the most important thing to understand is that nothing about this situation is settled, no matter how confidently it is being discussed online. The presence of Lil Durk's name in connection with alleged federal activity and the circulating idea of a secret safe has created a narrative that feels complete to many people simply because it has been repeated enough times. But repetition is not confirmation, and volume is not verification. What is actually happening here is a fast-moving example of how modern digital culture turns uncertainty into story, before facts have time to establish structure. When a topic reaches this level of visibility, the internet tends to compress everything into extremes. Either a situation is framed as nothing important at all, or it is treated as if the outcome is already decided. That compression removes the middle ground where most real information actually exists. In that middle ground, details are still unclear, context is still developing, and official confirmation has not fully defined the scope of what is real and what is not. Right now, this situation is still living in that space, even if the online narrative has already moved beyond it. One of the key dynamics driving this is how quickly emotional framing overtakes factual framing. The moment words like "raid, FBI," or "finished" enter the conversation, the tone shifts from reporting to storytelling. And storytelling, especially in online rap discourse, does not wait for confirmation. It builds momentum first and checks accuracy later. That is why narratives tied to high-profile artists often escalate so quickly. They are not just about information, they are about impact. Lil Durk's level of influence in the music industry amplifies every layer of this process. He is not a background name where rumors fade quietly. He is a central figure in modern hip-hop culture, with a large and highly engaged audience that reacts instantly to anything attached to his name. That level of attention creates a feedback loop where even minor claims can grow rapidly, not because they are confirmed, but because they are heavily circulated. At the same time, there is an important structural reality that often gets overlooked in these situations. Federal investigations, legal searches, and any serious law enforcement actions do not operate on social media timelines. They do not confirm or deny details through fragmented online posts. They move through official documentation, legal procedures, and verified channels. Until those channels produce clear, public information, everything circulating outside of them remains in the category of unverified reporting and interpretation. What complicates this further is the way online communities now process uncertainty. Instead of waiting for clarity, many users try to construct it themselves. They take fragments of posts, combine them with past cases, and build what feels like a complete picture. But that picture is often assembled without official grounding. It feels coherent because it is structured, not because it is confirmed. And once a structured narrative exists, it becomes harder for people to separate assumption from fact. This is why phrases like "he's finished" spread so quickly in moments like this. They offer resolution. They remove ambiguity. They give audiences something definitive to hold on to in a situation that is still unclear. But that sense of resolution is not coming from verified sources. It is coming from the emotional need for closure in a fast-moving information cycle. Meanwhile, the actual reality of the situation remains dependent on official clarification. Until there is verified reporting outlining concrete details, every claim, regardless of how widely shared, remains part of an evolving information environment rather than a confirmed outcome. That distinction is critical, because it separates what is known from what is being assumed. Another layer that cannot be ignored is how quickly narratives detach from their original sources once they enter algorithm-driven platforms. A phrase gets posted, then reposted with slight changes, then interpreted in commentary videos, then summarized in threads. By the time it reaches peak visibility, the original context may be diluted or entirely absent. What remains is a version of the story shaped more by repetition than by evidence. In the case of Lil Durk, that process is now fully active. His name has become the anchor point for a wide range of interpretations, many of which extend far beyond what can currently be verified. And once that kind of narrative takes hold, it does not rely on new information to keep moving. It feeds on engagement, reaction, and speculation until something authoritative interrupts or redirects it. So what exists right now is not a conclusion, and not a confirmed development, but a rapidly evolving narrative shaped by incomplete information and amplified interpretation. And until verified facts establish clear boundaries, everything else remains fluid, subject to change, correction, or complete reframing as new information emerges. Alright now, the only real certainty in this entire situation is uncertainty itself. Everything tied to Lil Durk and the alleged secret safe narrative is still sitting in that unstable space where online interpretation has moved faster than verified reporting. And once a story reaches that point, it starts to take on a life of its own, shaped more by repetition than by confirmed detail. What you are seeing across platforms is not a finalized outcome, but a layered buildup of claims that have not been officially validated in public documentation. That distinction matters, even if the internet often ignores it. Because in situations involving law enforcement, federal agencies, or legal investigations, the only thing that defines reality is confirmed information released through proper channels. Everything else remains speculation, no matter how confidently it is framed online. The reason this story has escalated so quickly is not because something definitive has been proven, but because the combination of keywords and context creates instant impact. When high-profile names in rap are attached to phrases like FBI or raid, the reaction cycle begins immediately. People share first, question later, and by the time clarity arrives, the narrative has already solidified in the public space. But underneath all of that noise, the actual situation has not reached a point of confirmation. It is still being shaped by incomplete information, fragmented posts, and interpretations that vary widely depending on the source. Some users treat it as fact, others reject it entirely, and most are left somewhere in between, trying to separate what is real from what is being amplified. And that is where the real story sits right now, not in conclusions, but in the gap between claim and confirmation.